naturally and miraculously. Thank you very much for your help. With the risk of starting with the obvious, I think what we witness is that communications infrastructure, and in particular backbone networks, are widely and increasingly recognized as strategic assets and as critical infrastructures. Now, I'm sure this will come as no surprise for anybody in this virtual room, but just to stress a little bit on the wide recognition, they are recognized as essential assets for competitiveness, sovereignty, and a well-functioning digital single market and single market in general. And what that implies for us, especially at DG Connect, and I would say the entire Commission, is that not only coverage and capacity, topics on which we're talking about for a long time, but also resilience, security, and redundancy are becoming strategic priorities. And what I have included on the slides are some recent documents, a recommendation, an action plan, and two important deliverables, two important reports that I would say are the framework, the policy framework in which this call on repair capacity appears. So you are probably well aware of the Commission recommendation of February 2024 on resilient and secure submarine cables. There are two important deliverables that come as a follow-up of that recommendation, and one came in October 2025, and it is a risk assessment. So it's really a comprehensive mapping of the risks, stress tests, and risk scenarios, and connected to that and completing that, a more recent report that was published in February 2026 as a result of a work with member states, as you might well be aware, and that is the security toolbox, providing responses to those risks and the risk scenarios identified, and importantly also a priority list of investments that we call cable projects of European interest. But I would like to stress what we always try to stress, that these are, although they're called projects, they're not really projects, they're investment areas where we will focus a good part of our funding instruments, and where we expect to crowd in also as much private investments as possible. And the last policy document that I would like to refer you to is the action plan on cable security of a bit more than 1 year ago, February 2025. And that builds and incorporates, or builds on what has been done, that on what is going on already, and incorporates a lot of it. But the distinguishing element, I would say, is a more comprehensive approach. When I say builds on what is done already, and I would kindly ask for the next slide, please, is that you will agree with me that CEF Digital has been for a long time in the business of strengthening the resilience and security of submarine cables. I don't intend to walk you through all these numbers, but this is just to illustrate that as part of the entire envelope that we had on CEF Digital, a lot of it, most of it has gone to what we call global gateways projects. So backbone projects, and a lot of it, the vast majority of it has been done in investments in submarine cable. To date, we have 58 submarine cable projects worth almost 550 million euros. And now, if I may go back to the action plan, if I can have the next slide, please. What I was saying, that what changes with the security action plan is a bit more of a comprehensive approach. So of course, investments in ensuring upgrades, in deployment, in creating redundancy, in addressing vulnerabilities and missing links remains, of course, the main work in ensuring that we have secure and resilient submarine cables. But now we're moving towards a more comprehensive approach from prevention through detection, response and recovery in case there are a lot of incidents. And indeed, it's specifically that part that the call that we're talking about today comes to address, and to deterrence. So both CEF Digital and the Digital Euro program have been called to be main funding instruments for this action plan. And you will see here on the slides that CEF will continue to provide investments now with an increasing focus on cable projects of European interest, but we have a series of more novel intervention, more in a logic of not so much immediate response, but in a logic of preparedness and reinforcing the capacity to respond and recover in case an intensification of incidents is observed, and based indeed on observations in the latest period. Now, the last things that I would like to share with you is that and that takes me to the last slide, please. With this in mind, we have gone and modified the CEF Digital Work Program for the period 2024-2027. And there are two modifications in particular. One is that we have focused the remaining budget entirely on backbone projects. So all of the remaining budget is now dedicated to this kind of projects, of which the bulk will continue to do the business as usual. So the investments in deployment, now a bit more focused on cable projects of European interest, or with an increasing focus on these project areas. But there are two novel types of intervention, one of which we will be talking about today, the repair capacities, and the other one in upgrades of existing cables with smart capacities. And now I would like to pass the floor to my colleague Sami, who will give you further background on where we are with the implementations of digital before my colleague Georgios will present you the ins and outs of this call and how it fits into the response and repair capacity repair angle of the action plan. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for the floor, Alexandra. And let me indeed continue with a few more details also on the CEF program. So just very shortly that indeed we are, as HDEA, together with DG Connect, running these calls. And HDEA, besides the digital area, as you can see from the slide, also covers many different aspects, as the name hints, much of them related to health, but also more widely as regards industry, food safety, and space. The Connecting Europe facility also covers a wider area than digital, as you can see here in the green. There is a very large portfolio under what is called CEF Transport, and another one under CEF Energy. Generally, it's about infrastructure of common European interest. And then what we are focusing on is the digital transformation of the economy and society. And the Connecting Europe facility as such should get in where there are market failures to have the infrastructure that we need to connect Europe. As CEF Digital, the 1.5 billion that we have in the project, and you saw the overview in Alexandra's slide just before. As you can see here, from call 1 to call 4, we have already emitted over 1 billion euro, so more than or around 3/4 of the budget of the program. And then we hope during the calls this year, what we in one group called call 5, to commit another 260 million. And then we have 87, as it also said in Alexandra's slide, 87 million left and we will see what exactly will happen with that. But the plan, of course, would be to continue with that next year. Just a short overview of the 260 million that we expect to be calling for this year. Indeed, the call we are discussing today in the green on top covers a budget of 20 million euros. And then later in the year, in the hopefully not too distant future, we'll have especially 2 more calls on the as we would call it, the ordinary global gateways, digital global gateways calls. So the ones that are more similar to the ones you have seen in previous years. And then a new call on upgrade of cables to smart capacity, as also mentioned in the work program that Alexandra was talking about. Finally, just very shortly, let me run you through the timeline of the call, of this pilot call. Basically, as you know, it has been open for about 1 month by now. And it will be open for still 2 months, so it will close at 5 p.m. I guess there is actually an S missing there. It should be Central European Summertime, because we will have switched time by then. But I hope that should not be the detail that keeps you from applying. And then we hope to do the evaluations from May to July, to provide information to the selected and applicants during summer, so that we can still go for a grant agreement signature during call 4, and that we can pay out pre-financing before the end of 2026, before the end of this year. So that was it from my side, and now I would pass the floor to Georgios to take us more into the details of the call.
Good morning, everybody. I hope you can hear and see me well. Georgios Tselentis. I work in DG Connect B5 unit in investment in high capacity networks. And I will start now my presentation. Can we start with the next slide, please? About the introduction of this call. It is a call that is a critical component, as it was mentioned by Alexandra, of the Digital Global Gateway policy. It aims at ensuring the resilience of our infrastructure in Europe against both the technical, but at the same time the technical failures, but at the same time any attempt for intentional sabotage. So this call, what this call is not a call for general routine maintenance. It's, as I said, a core pillar of our policy, in particular, as it was mentioned by Alexandra, and it's destined to fill the gap that we can identify in the commercial market. So the commercial market in the past responds to a good extent to any events that happened, but in case of extreme scenarios where we have multiple CATs, we identified that there is a gap for the maintenance and repair. The idea here is to have a modular solution. So we want to turn the open deck, flat deck vessels into repair ships, and this we want to do it in a short notice in order to reduce the time to repair. As you saw, the whole thing is going to be implemented by our agency, ADEA. Next slide, please. So how this started, we had some feedback from our stakeholders. You may know the cable incidents that happened in the Baltic region. And as I said, despite the fact that it was the response from the commercial was in good time. It gave us concerns what may happen if this was not just an isolated incident, but many at the time. So we looked at the repair capacity and we identified that we are talking about critical infrastructure. And so we cannot afford a high time to repair in this case. At the same time, by surveying what is going on in the overall in the repair capacity, we see the vessels, the fleet is reaching end of lifetime, which means high time also for time to repair, but at the same time high costs. This at the same time to do other jobs. They need to go and lay cables in most cases. But in other cases also we can use more flexible solutions with ships or barges that are, particularly in shallow waters, they are able to do the repair. So other issues see in the sector is that this is a specialized job that we need to have the right skills and the right crews, and we want to see how this also will be managed in times of crisis. The market is growing very fast, which means that more cables are laid in the bottom of our seas. So more incidents can happen, and time to repair can increase, and it can provide pressure for the sector of repair. So when we announced that we are thinking about something like this, the Baltic Sea was the first candidate for a pilot. Depending on how this will go, we will consider to prolong this to other areas, the Atlantic or Mediterranean, or even other areas that might need our intervention. Why now? The fact that, as I said, there are around worldwide 200 failures. We witnessed the recent incidents, and that could suggest deliberate hostile acts. We have the policy mandate that was mentioned by Alexandra under the EU Action Plan on Cable Security and the Council recommendations. And what we have as a strategic goal is to ensure that our services and our networks will continue to work despite any unintentional or intentional disruptions. Next slide, please. So the primary goal of this call is to establish a pool of repair modules. These modules are primarily for data cables. These modules are not for, as I said, are not for maintenance or job as usual. Are for emergency situations. And for crisis that can happen. And that's why we started in this particular area, the area of Baltic Sea, as it is defined by HELCOM. And as I said, this is due to the recent activity. Next slide, please. So this is a modular approach, which is equipment that can be installed on board vessels that are already pre-configured or ready to take these modules, and we put a quite tight time frame. So we want that the ship, upon notice, comes and to the appropriate location and loads the the modules within 1 day. These are not our guiding requirements. I mean, we can have force majeure that can prevent that, but this is what we want to achieve. We want to achieve a quick response. In terms of eligible activities, we can fund with this call the spares, the repeaters, the tools that are needed. So whatever is needed for these models to be a plug-and-play solution, with any possible other equipment like on the ship, like the cranes, the frames, the vehicles that perform operations underwater. And we want to have in advance at least 3 ships that are identified and pre-configured to receive these modules. At the same time, eligible activities also to have the necessary personnel and crew that can operate these modules. And we can also allow for the places where these modules are going to be stored, the construction or purchase of storage facilities. But this, we want to keep it at low cost, not to diversify the nature of the call at 10% of the eligible costs. Next slide, please. So who can operate, who can participate in this call, and who can operate the whole endeavor here? We restrict the call to public entities with an emergency response mandate. So this means that these are entities, for example, from civil protection, or the Coast Guards, or the national navies. We expect that during the assessment of the application that needs to have the blessing of the member state, this will be identified. The applicants, as I said, must identify 3 vessels that can be public or private, and beforehand secure service level agreements that will ensure their availability in short notice, as I said, except the time of force majeure. But in case this cannot happen, then we would look also for some contingency plans. How can they respond at the minimum time with these vessels? There is also an issue of coordination. We want these modules to be the crisis to be triggered by another entity, either national or what we have called in another call, and Digital Europe called the regional cable hubs, which is funded, as I said, under DEP, and will be responsible to declare the emergency situations and trigger the modules to be used. Next slide, please. This call, as our previous calls, is bound to security restrictions. So the participation is restricted to the entities which are established in the EU and controlled by EU member states or nationals. And this is because this again is about the protecting critical infrastructure. So whenever is needed, and I urge you to look at the securities of the call, applicants must submit ownership control declarations. Also for the equipment, it has to comply with the 5G security toolbox guidelines, and you should avoid high-risk suppliers. Also, we want this to be a long-standing intervention, so we want that this solution of protection of our critical infrastructure stays after the end of the project under the beneficiary control, which, as I said, is restricted to EU member states and EU member entities controlled entities by EU. So let me, in semantic ways, give you an example of how this will work in practice. So imagine that you have one or many cable incidents at the same time. The cable owner or the regional cable hub or the competent national authority can declare in this time the emergency situation and assess the availability of commercial repair capacity. If this is the case, if there is an agreement, if there is the cable owner has secured availability of repair, then this is triggered, and the cable, according to the plan, is going to be repaired. If not, and this is the case where we have, as I said, a crisis with multiple cable incidents in the area. Then we trigger the use of the repair modules. Then the repair modules are in the deadlines that I mentioned. The ships are going to the shipyards. The repair modules are installed on the vessels. The specialized crew that is necessary to operate those modules is boarded, and the vessel is going and intervene in the place of the incident. So this is more or less the mechanism, how it works. Next slide, please. This call has an expected budget of 20 million euros. Is a pilot. It is we are talking about type of works in this call with 50% co-funding rate. And what we want to do, and these are the key performance indicators, is to reduce the average time to repair for the Baltic cable systems. So overall, this is, as I said, for treating a crisis where multiple incidents have happened, and we want to measure how this is going to be improved, where the modules are strategically placed to reduce this time to repair. The call documents, everything, you will find it at the call page, but I think my colleagues in the next presentations will give you all the details about how to apply, and I think I'm done with this presentation. If you have anything else, please put your questions in slide, and we'll try our best to answer that, or through our frequently asked questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much indeed, Yorgos. We do have a few questions on slide already, so we can have a look at them right now. And here are the questions. Over to you, Yorgos.
Yes. The question about private companies, as I mentioned, the call is for is destined to the public authorities. Now, these public authorities are the prime contractors of the call. They can, I can imagine, if there are also other conditions, as I said, about EU controllership, who can be a beneficiary there. But the prime contractor has to be a public entity. If now this public entity wants to, for some of the operations, wants to use private companies as a subcontractor, I think this is allowed under the control also of my colleagues. I think this is allowed, but we need to have a prime contractor as a public authority there. Most Baltic Sea cables are certified for repair using a Ticoflex. Could you see the joint system is also joint system is also eligible under the call, even though it is not mentioned in the examples. The list of the examples in the call is non-exhaustive. Anything that can be of types of joint or anything that can also be in use for this type of repair, I think it's eligible. Also, every time that you mention something in your application, it would be good to show how this will improve, for example, the time to repair or the possibility to intervene in many systems. Having, let's say, a more universal application, the better. So I don't see an issue here, and I don't want to go into details about specific systems. This is something that will be evaluated during the proposal by our experts. When selecting a repair solution, should applicants choose the most economically favorable solution considering the repair joint? Yes, the economy and is there, but I think it's quality versus there is a quality aspect there that needs to be evaluated. Economical, yes, for sure. Certification, yes. So all these are going to be judged during the evaluation. It's something that is not driven only by economy, but there are also other quality factors that are going to be evaluated. Could you clarify how many modules are we targeting? This is not a question of number. I think this is a question of how many modules are needed, and this is something that the applicant has to demonstrate, are needed to lower the time to intervention. So this is something that we need here a coordination, if I can say so, in this call between the interested parties. This is, we prefer to have a solution that covers the maximum systems and lowers the time response. So I cannot give a number here, but I think it's a design feature of the application of how many modules you are going to propose and where you are going to place them, with what ships you are going to use them, and what SLAs you are going to apply. So all these are features of the proposal. Could you clarify what response or call out time from the commercial cable repair market you would be considered acceptable before activating this program? I'm not sure I get exactly the question. Somebody else can call out time.
I believe it's a little bit of a guesswork here, but I think that the trigger for this emergency is done by national level, no, the response authorities in charge. So I expect that we may look at.
I think traditionally what happens, as I showed in my diagram, the cable owners have already established a relation with their commercial counterparts that do the repairs. So either through agreements or through their own contractors. So it's up to them to say whether this can be solved in a quick way. And that was in my diagram what I was saying, that that is the first thing to consider. Can this be solved quickly through the existing commercial solutions. And this, the cable owner. And this, yeah. Sorry, there is an echo. The other question is about the workflow in case of activation of modules utilization. Who will handle the repair operation, including vessel management, mobilization, and execution of complete repair? The repair, in our case, we have the contract with the entity that does the prime contractor. So with them, we have the contract. They are the ones responsible for overseeing the mobilization of the repair. Could you clarify which submarine cable systems in the Baltic the proposed repair asset is expected to have the capability to repair, noting that different cable types may require different repair methods and equipment? I think we don't make a distinction here. We mention all cable systems that are there, and they are considered as a critical infrastructure for the communication between the countries. The next one, our solution on secure information sharing and storage is certified quantum resistant, and we obtained the certification to manage classified information. We have an do you need this type of PQC-based solution? I think this is a very detailed and technical, but I say if I can say something reading this question, if there is a specific need for a specific cable that you can provide a solution, I think good for you, then it's needed. If it is the only solution that can be provided for repair, then for sure. Are link owners expected to maintain a commercial repair preparedness agreement, or could they rely on this program as a backup for cable? As I said, we are trying here to fill a gap which is after a crisis is happening. So I wouldn't as a backup, yes, but in cases of crisis, not as a business as usual. We don't want to mess with the existing repair market. When do you foresee the opening of the other pilots in other basins? Do you have already an order of priority? Not yet, I would say, but we expect an opening probably already in this year for other basins. Let's see how this call goes, I would say. And we don't have yet a priority. We will assess also the needs. We will assess also what is happening also with the other calls, the call on cable hubs, which I think is let's say a call which is coordinating this type of activities. And depending on all this and the needs, and as you see now also in the world is evolving with a lot of crises that are happening in different geographic locations. I wouldn't put today something written about what is the next area that we're going to address. So I hope I answered.
Okay. Yes, thank you very much, Yorgos. So you've answered the first set of questions. Any question that is related to the evaluation and the application will be answered in the second set of questions and answers. Also keep flowing your questions, even if they are policy related. You can put your questions through the Slido and we will tackle them at the end of this presentation. So thanks, Yorgos and Alexandra, for the policy insights. I will now give the floor to Berta, our call coordinator. We will talk about the evaluation process.
Okay, good morning. Thank you, Alice. And well, I will guide you now through the evaluation process and our criteria. So this slide presents the principles of the evaluation and the selection process. And we have like 3 main steps: the preliminary checks that are done by KDA. When we receive the proposals after the call deadline, there is a first check on admissibility and eligibility. We'll come back to this later on. Then there is an evaluation, an external evaluation run by external expert evaluators, and it has 2 phases: the individual assessments and the consensus meetings. And then the last part of the evaluation is the internal evaluation and the selection committee run by the European Commission, by DG Connect. And after it, there is a recommendation to draft the list of proposals. With regard to the tasks and role of the expert evaluators, the first step is for them to understand the call text and procedure. And in order to do that, they receive briefing materials, and we also brief them on the call as such, and the evaluation criteria, etc. Then they have a period where they evaluate individually. Concretely, in this call, we will have 5 technical experts and 1 security expert per proposal. And they will draft individual assessments, and they won't have contact among themselves during this individual phase. And then they will meet to reach consensus. They will first discuss the comments and the scores, and then they will prepare a consensus report for each proposal. After the evaluation process as such, once the evaluation has drafted the report with the ranking of the proposals, etc., there is a preparation of the selection decision, and then there's a consultation, inter-survey consultation. The coordination CEF committee is also, the CEF committee is also consulted, and then the information to applicants and the launch of the grant agreement preparation. And after that, the adoption of the commission selection decision. All this, as it was explained before by Sami, will take place between the end of June and end of July as indicative time. With regard to the admissibility and eligibility, on the admissibility, this has been said as well by Sami already. The proposals must be submitted before the call deadline, 6th of May at 5 o'clock in Brussels time. They have to be submitted electronically via the funding and tender portal. It's not possible to submit them by paper, in paper or by email. They need to be complete, including all the documents and mandatory annexes. We'll come back to this also later, using the templates that you can find in the submission system. And the proposals must be readable, accessible, and print. Well, this is a list that is coming from part 5 of the call document. It's important that you check that all the documents that are needed are there. And I'm going to emphasize this in the next slide, because from the past lessons learned, sometimes when we receive proposals, there are missing parts in the application form, part B, for instance, because sometimes when Word documents are PDF'd, bits and pieces are missing. So please check that everything is complete when you upload the information in the system. Sometimes there are also inconsistencies between the budget, between part A online and the budget table per Word package in Excel. There might be also missing annexes that are mandatory as per the call text. Please check, as I said, the section 5 of the call text. The same with the documents that need to be signed, for instance, by the member states. Make sure that they are properly and duly signed. And the same with the security declarations. Make sure that the information contained there is complete. With regard to the eligibility, and Yorgos has already touch upon this as well. So this for the project eligibility, the proposal is in scope and needs to be in scope, relating to the objectives, scope, and types of activities that can be financed according to the call conditions, and the proposed project activities need to take place in the eligible countries. With regard to the eligibility of the participants, as already said as well by Yorgos, the entities need to be public bodies with an emergency response mandate. This will be confirmed in the mandatory letters of support, and they need to be established in one of the eligible countries, that is EU member states, OCTs, or countries associated to the CEF program, or countries with ongoing negotiations for the association agreement. With regard to the award criteria, we have 5 award criteria. This slide presents the minimum pass score and the maximum score, and also the overall scores. In order to pass is a 15, and the maximum a proposal can get is a 25. If there are 2 or several proposals that get the same score, this priority order will be used. So first follow the priority and urgency, then maturity, catalytic effect, impact, and quality rating. With regard to the priority and urgency, the evaluation will check that the proposal demonstrates how the proposed action will contribute to the sectoral policy objectives and priorities. We'll check how it explains to what extent the added value, the EU added value, the synergies with other CEF sectors, other CEF digital topics, or other EU programs, and also the projects that cover a larger area or bigger density of cables, while a shortest possible time to repair would be prioritized in this scope. With regard to the maturity, the evaluation will assess the preparatory steps that have been already completed or are envisaged, and the confirmation that the project can be carried out without delays. We'll assess also the confirmation of the project proposed project is mature enough, the status and planning of the contracting procedures, authorizations, approval, permits, etc., and the financial availability and commitments, explaining the efforts to secure other source of funding. On the quality, there are sources needed, both financial and human, to implement the project will be assessed, the organizational structure, the project management, risk management methods and procedures, the risk assessment. With regard to impact, the evaluation will check the positive externalities, namely in terms of competition, safety, security, cybersecurity of telecommunication networks, interoperability and accessibility aspects of the proposal, innovation, digitalization, resilience, the cross-border dimension, potential complementarities with other public funding programs when applicable. With regard to the catalytic effect, the evaluation will check, for instance, how the proposal explains how the financial gap generated by insufficient financial viability and high upfront cost is overcome. These are examples. The proposal doesn't need to include them all, so it's or if the proposal demonstrates how the funding will increase the capacity to mobilize different investment sources, or how it explains how the quality or the scope size of the project will be improved, or how it demonstrates that the CEF grant helped accelerating the overall investment. The information provided under the different criteria must be coherent and consistent across the application. It should convincingly demonstrate the needs of the EU funds. It's important to check that all application sections, again, are complete and all required supporting documents are submitted. The proposals are limited to a maximum of 120 20 pages. Any additional pages will be made invisible to the evaluators by the system. The supporting documents don't count in this limit, and all the beneficiaries need to be registered in the participant registry. With regard to the results of the evaluation, so once the evaluation is completed, all proposals will be informed about the evaluation result through an evaluation result letter. Successful proposals will be invited for the grant preparation. The others may be put in a reserve list or might be rejected. The invitation to grant preparation doesn't constitute a formal commitment for funding. We will still need to make some legal checks before the award. If you believe that the evaluation procedure was flawed, you can submit a complaint following the deadlines and procedures set out in the evaluation result. With regard to the grant preparation, it involves a dialogue in fine-tuning the technical and financial aspects, such as milestones, deliverables, and implementation of some of the recommendations from the evaluation when applicable. The grant agreement provisions are defined in the model grant agreement, and they are not negotiable. The model grant agreement that will be used and all other relevant templates can be found in the portal reference documents. So that's it from my side. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Berta. I'll now pass the floor to Michal for the preparation of a successful proposal.
Thank you, Alice, and good morning, everyone. My name is Michał Rekowski. I'm a project officer at HDA B1 CEF Digital Unit, and I will talk briefly about the key steps and good practices while preparing a proposal to make sure that it goes through the evaluation successfully. So the place to start and the preparation of the application is always the funding and tenders portal. This is obviously where the call has been published. It's also the place where you can find not only the call text, but also the set of supporting documents that are required in the application. It is also where you can look for the question and answers that have been already published. So it's a general repository of all the critical information related to the application process. And further to that, it's also where you will trigger your application form. So you have to go there to start the launch of the application. Then there is also an online manual where you can familiarize yourselves with every aspect of the application process. So there are paragraphs and articles there that provide a certain clarity on where to find partners, how to register your organization, how to submit a proposal, and then all the steps that happen after the submission that Berta has already discussed. So the checks that we do on the admissibility and eligibility of the proposals, what we do during the evaluation, what happens during the evaluation, what happens during the grant preparation, etc. Then, what builds a good proposal? So there are a few good practices that are worth keeping in mind and applying while preparing the application. First of all, you should always stick to simple language and avoid jargon. So you need to assume that the evaluators that will be evaluating your proposal will only rely on the information provided in the proposal. So if there is any key piece of information about the project that you propose that is missing from the application form, they will simply not know it and will not be able to evaluate that part of the application. The information should be easy to find. So most importantly, it should be placed under the relevant section. So the evaluators are always able to navigate the proposal with ease and find the information that they might be looking for at the moment. Also, please keep in mind that no assumptions or requests for any information missing from the proposal will be made during the evaluation process. So this is really to reiterate what already was said. The proposal, the application form that you submit is what is being evaluated, and it is being treated as a complete document. Then you should always remember to double check the list of mandatory annexes that are required in the application. And then also please include any relevant graphical materials such as graphs, maps, charts, etc. That would make it easier for the evaluators to understand the scope of the project that you are proposing. Then the proposal should have a clear logical structure that allows everyone who evaluates it to understand what is the project about, right? So what is the scope of the project? What is the result of the project? What are the technical parameters of the project, such as maybe the characteristic of the modules in this case? Then it should be clearly explained how the project will achieve its objectives. So that is something that needs to be clearly laid out with the use of several categories such as work packages, tasks, milestones, and deliverables. So the whole project should be easily translatable to those categories. And then it should be also clear from the proposal who will carry out the project. So the tasks should be clearly attributed to particular members of the consortium, and any subcontracting of tasks to outside of the consortium should be indicated in the application form. Next, so the proposal should clearly divide the project into the work packages, as I said. The work packages should be titled accordingly to the work that is to be performed there under a certain work package. They should also somehow follow a chronological order of the work to be performed in the project. So usually the design phase should precede the application or the installation of the module. And then on the specific subtasks, they should be included in the tasks. They should be linked to the milestones of the project. So the whole structure that is laid out in the proposal should allow the reader to understand how the project will proceed in terms of the timing and of the consequential implementation of specific tasks. And then there should be also indicated deliverables that would allow the successful applicant to clearly report to the granting authority about the progress of the implementation. Then there are several good practices, if you will, that are always worth to implement while preparing the proposal. So, for instance, every milestone should have, every project should have at least 2 milestones, start and the end of the project. But for instance, in the case of work packages that go for longer than 1 year, there should be ideally at least 1 milestone every 12 months. So the granting authority can understand throughout the implementation how the project is doing. And then there should be reliable and realistic means of verification that should be defined in the proposal. So again, the granting authority can verify by reference to those means how the project is progressing and whether the project is progressing accordingly to the work plan that was laid out in the proposal. Then you should always make sure that the proposals, because as you are aware, they are comprising a lot of documents, so you should always ensure that they form a complete testimony to what the proposed project is meant to be. So the narrative should be coherent. You should make sure that there is a consistency in between different parts of the proposal and different aspects of the project. So obviously, if you have different work packages, they should somehow be connected to the action, and the information in the description of those work packages should allow the reader to understand again what will happen and in what order. Any administrative procedures that are foreseen should be presented in chronological order as well in the breakdown of the work packages. And as I said, the design, for instance, should be finalized always before the application, the installation of the modules or fabrication of the modules is performed. And there always should be a Gantt chart in the proposal that clearly presents a bird's eye view on the advancement of the project from the start till the end, with all of the milestones indicated, although the start and end dates of the work packages, so the evaluators can easily understand at which stage the project will achieve which of its objectives. Very important to keep in mind, especially since the participation in this project is particularly directed to public entities. On the procurement, so on any aspects of subcontracting, you should keep in mind that the applicants, the participants, should always comply with EU law on public procurement and relevant national legislation. Obviously, you know which rules bound you in this respect, but it is also noteworthy to state that this is something that is part of the evaluation, so it is being considered as a factor, and also this is something that is later on being verified by the granting authority during the implementation and the payment procedures of the project. And in case non-compliance is detected, that can lead to several results, including the reduction of the grants. So before you submit your proposal, it's always good to check that that your proposal, first of all, fits within the scope of the call document, and it's always good to proofread your proposal, especially that sometimes there are multiple people working on a single application, or multiple entities. Sometimes they differ in the language they use, or they may even differ in the details of the project, such as deadlines, the prospective time frame, the amounts for certain cost categories. So it's always good to proofread to make sure that the proposal is coherent, as prepared in a decent manner concerning the quality of the language applied, and to make sure that the proposal also clearly demonstrates the added value of the CEF digital funding. And also, obviously, that all the information and the annexes that are submitted are correct, are the correct versions. You can always refer to the funding and burden portal for the templates, and that you are not missing any of these. Then please always make sure that you have encoded all sections of the application form Part A directly in the platform, because Part A is the part of the application that is sort of generated from the system based on the data that you put in there. Then also please read through, complete, and upload the Part B. So this is the narrative part, if you will. That's, as Berta mentioned, is critical to check that this document is not missing any elements, because it's a PDF that you upload to the system. And then also for all of the additional requested documents, please double check if they are, first of all, correctly filled in, signed if a signature is needed, and correctly submitted to the platform before you click submit on the whole application as such. You can always refer to Part 5 of the call text, admissibility and documents for the exhaustive list of mandatory documents that should accompany your application. Then you should always make sure that you have contacted the critical stakeholders, in this case, the member states, the public administrators that needs to endorse your proposal with a support letter on time, so that they have enough time to prepare the necessary document and provide it to you. And if you need to check the list of national contact points for CEF Digital, the link will be provided in the PowerPoint that will be shared later on. And as my colleagues have mentioned, the deadline is the 6th of May, 5 o'clock, indeed summer, Central European summertime. Then on the preparation of the budget, first of all, always please consult the relevant part of the call text, which in this case is the section 6 on eligibility on the specific requirements. In general, you should remember that whatever you put in the project's proposed budget, it should be clearly justified and broken down in your application form. So there are two variables, if you will, to consider while preparing your budget. The first one is the breakdown per cost category, and the list of cost categories is explained in the call text. And the other one is the breakdown per the work package. So in other words, the evaluators need to be able to clearly understand under which cost category a certain cost item should fall, whether you are talking in the proposal about something that you are meaning to subcontract, or is it something that you will procure from an external supplier, which is not subcontractor, or whether this is something that will be delivered with the use of your own resources, of your own personnel. Then the evaluators need also to understand how all those cost items fall within the work plan that is laid out in the proposal. So you should also organize the budget per work package. And it is critical to remember that this is an essential part of the proposal and is subject to evaluation. Concerning the breakdown per cost category, so again, the information is directly encoded by you in the system. And again, as I said, there are several cost categories which are explained in the call text and with the indication on the eligibility criteria concerning the personal subcontracting, purchase costs, other cost categories, and indirect costs. If in doubt, you can also relate to the template of the grant agreement, model grant agreement, that is also available in the funding and tender portal. There are provisions, specific articles in the grant agreement that explain further the eligibility of particular costs under a given cost category. Right, so as I said, there are 5 categories. Personal costs, that refers to the personnel of your organization that is going to work on the project. Then we have subcontracting, so contracts for goods, works, and services that are part of the action tasks. Then purchase costs, so goods, works, and services that are needed to carry out the action, but are not part of the action itself. So things like equipment, suppliers, consumables that you will need for the implementation. And please, again, as you see, there is a reminder that procurement rules, the usual procurement rules, have to be respected in the organization of those tenders. And then the main budget of the project should be laid out in a table that is already pre-configured in the system. So you will insert your data in the system. In this table, you can see the green box that indicates the main cost categories that are eligible under this call. And again, there are some categories that are not going to be eligible, for instance, land purchase or studies or financial support to third parties. And again, if you have a doubt on what is eligible, what is not, please refer to the call text that clearly indicates on each of those categories. Then the breakdown per work package. So as I said, the evaluators need to understand how specific costs fit within the work plan that you have. You can use an Excel file that is available for download, and then you fill it in with the data and you upload it as a part of your application form. The breakdown of the cost then is organized per work package. So we need to see work package 1, how much of the budget you plan to consume on that, on which specific category, and in specific reporting period of the project. And then also per specific applicant. So we need to be able to attribute, based on the information you provide, we need to be able to attribute how big portion of the budget will be consumed by a specific participant of the consortium within a given period under a given work package on a given task. And then the system will calculate the total budget for work package. And the Excel will also do that for you. So it is important, I will also refer to that in a second, but it's important always to double check after you have filled in all the data that the numbers that you see in the system and the numbers that you have in the Excel file and in the part B are aligned. We see it more often than not that there are issues with some of the application forms, whereas the numbers provided, for instance, in the Excel and the supporting documents or in the system are not exactly aligned with the numbers mentioned in the part B, so the narrative part. And this can be due to many reasons. Most often is that during the preparation process, one person works on encoding of the data in the system, then someone else updates something in the part B, and the first person is not aware that some figures have changed, and then there's a discrepancy. And this discrepancy can be treated by the evaluators as a shortcoming of the proposed project. So it is always critical to ensure that the numbers are aligned. As I said, in the Excel file, you will have to indicate figures for several subcategories, such as the specific work packages, the participants, and the reporting periods as well. So, for instance, in the screenshot 4, we can see that we should be able to identify for work package 1 under the first reporting period for the first participant what is the budget envisioned. And again, as I said, please double check between the elements of the application form and in the system if the figures are aligned after you have inserted the data. Then, in case there are divergences between the budget data that are discovered during the evaluation process, it is the budget per cost category in the structured data that will prevail. And also, please, while preparing the budget, always plan and prepare your accounting and reporting accordingly. Any costs foreseen to be claimed for reimbursement in the future should be clearly stipulated under the both cost category, correct cost category, and the work package breakdown of the budget. And that would be all from my end. So thank you very much. If you want to refer to the Q&As, you will find the link in the presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Michał, for this comprehensive presentation. So for those of you who would like to go back to the presentation and the recording, they will be saved on the event page of this Info Day page in the HDA website, so you can go back to them as much as you want while preparing your presentation. So we will go to the question and answers, and my colleague will be sharing the screen. I'll just remind you that for Slido, if you haven't had time to scan the QR code, you can just go to slido.com and use the hashtag cable repair, hashtag cable repair in one word. Or I also saved the link in the chat, so you have the link to go directly to the Slido to put your questions. I will leave the floor to Mateusz Kujawa, our head of sector, to answer the questions.
So we'll start reading. First one, are personal costs for e.g. project manager, coordinator for the project eligible? Yes, they are. Obviously under the usual eligibility conditions. It is confirmed in the call text under, I believe, section 10, where you can find details what costs are eligible, and indeed personal costs are included as eligible costs, and some conditions are mentioned, and also you'll find more conditions on cost eligibility in the grant agreement and the annotated grant agreement. Participation on non-EU controlled entities. What roles can these entities have in the calls? Strict security guarantees required, what kind approved by whom in the member states? So as mentioned earlier, at several occasions, Yorgos and other colleagues. This call is aimed at public entities with emergency mandate, so from the EU member states. So in principle, subject to validation, the validation as public entities, they will not need to go under any further process of the control checks. However, if you have entities in the capacity of associated partners or subcontractors, and if those are non-EU controlled, after the verification of the control status by our services, then indeed they will have to provide security guarantees by the country of establishment, by the member state of establishment. And what kind? The template, as you will find in the call text, is available, and you just follow the template, which has to be signed with the information by the entity concerned and approved by the member state of the entity's establishment. Next question. Are the costs for acquiring the cable repair equipment considered as purchase cost or subcontract cost? It depends. If it's a simple requirement of equipment, just a simple purchase of equipment, it is an equipment cost. However, if there are tasks associated to the equipment purchase and deployment, if indeed there is implementation of a task related to equipment, then such costs should be categorized as a subcontracting cost. I would ask a colleague from DG Connect to answer on the emergency response mandate, Yorgos or other colleagues. We can give you some examples in the meantime. So those entities are entities active in the civil protection, National Emergency Response Agency, Coast Guards, and military navies. If DG Connect would like to complete.
The only thing that I could add compared to what Mateus just said is that I would refer you to the parallel. I see Georgios is also ready to complete. I would refer you to the DEP call for regional hubs, which specifies that it's either the regional hubs or the emergency response mandate public entities. Please, Georgios. I think you may have more details there.
I think I see an issue with definition here because it is mainly up to the member state there to clarify what is considered a public entity with an emergency response mandate. Now, when you say if there is no clear public entity, there should be in the structure of the member state somebody who gives the authorization for intervention in critical infrastructures, and if they deem that the XYZ entity is the one that can provide the answer, then I would assume that they have the mandate. But this is very particular for every member state, and I don't want to give a definition that will say that exclude some cases or others. So I think we will have to judge this by case for every member state, and probably you would like to send us your question in advance, and then we can check with the member state and identify the eligibility of the entity.
If I could complete also on my side, in the mandatory documents, you will find that letters of support from all member states, which is a requirement under each of our calls. This time will also include necessary confirmation of the nature of the applicant, public entity with an emergency response mandate. So obviously we will rely to a large extent on the member state approval and confirmation.
Thank you. I think that brings us to the end of the questions. So while thanking you all for the active participation, I just wanted to remind basically the contact email that you have here for any further questions. I believe that the Q&A link was also shared in the chat before. So you will see there already, I think we have over 30 initial questions that we have tried to answer, and feel free if you do not feel your question is answered there, of course, feel free to ask us, but please check already, maybe someone else has already asked the question you might have. And then as a very last step, we would ask you to take some time to fill in the short feedback survey on the way you see this info session, and if you would have any suggestions for us in the future. And I think with that, indeed, I would just say thank you both and indeed the survey was just shared in the chat again. I would like to both on my behalf, on our behalf, and Hadea, on behalf of DG Connect, thank the speakers, Alexandra, Georges, Alice, Mateusz, Berta, and Michał, and wish you a pleasant day. Thank you.